Yeah.
Even the most high-tech businesses are people's business.
Correct.
I mean, look at what happened to ChatGPT,
Yeah.
OpenAI.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the company almost went under on a people issue.
For all the glory it had, right?
And then it was rescued because you solved the people problem.
Sanjeev, welcome to Cred Curious.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Kunal.
And thank you so much for doing this. You are the OG of the startup world, which many people probably don't realize that you've been doing this way before the word startup became cool. The funding world became cool. You've been public for how many years? I don't even know anymore. And you've mentored so many founders and seen so many journeys. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thanks for inviting me. That's a bit of an exaggeration. हम तो पत्थर तोड़ रहे थे, लेकिन कंपनी बन गई.
How many years, Sanjeev, for the journey? How long have you been doing startups?
So I quit my job in 1990. So that's what, 34 years.
Yes.
उस जमाने में इसको स्टार्टअप नहीं बोलते थे. We used to call it business. मैं business करूँगा. For the first 7 years, I lifted and did a whole bunch of small things. Teaching, training, report writing, salary surveys, trademarks database, small-time consulting, whatever came my way in order to survive. We were operating out of a servant quarter above a garage. I took up a second job as a part-time journalist for 3-4 years in the middle.
Wow.
Just anything. I was teaching at various business schools in and around Delhi as visiting faculty. Anything to survive, right? And in 97, after 7 years of drifting, we launched Naukri as one more seemingly small idea. At that time, there were only 14,000 internet accounts in the country. So we shared accounts by 200,000 users. And we started the website with a very simple concept. We got in 29 newspapers and magazines from around the country every day, every week. And we would just take the job ads from there. These were 29 papers that would carry appointment ads, right? And we would take the job ads from there and rehash them in our own words, our data structure, and put it up on the internet. And we called it Naukri.
Wow.
And it began to get traffic. We had no money. We were broke, so we couldn't advertise. We began to get traffic. This is April 97. 3 years later, we got venture capital. We bootstrapped for 3 years.
Wow.
And,
that's amazing. It's fascinating about two things. First, that you bootstrap for 3 years, which seems to be not the trend right now. Everybody thinks that you can only do a startup if you have capital, which is not the norm. 99% of all startups in India actually start without capital, and capital comes later. So I think it's a interesting thing to kind of point out, because now we are living in this world which we put on television. Funding raise is the only way you do startups. So
yeah, funding makes news. But the thing is that bootstrapping is actually going to be very good discipline, where you have to break even to survive. Right? We learned the value of money in the first 10 years of not having venture capital. So there was no venture capital in India for the first 10 years of my journey as an entrepreneur. I mean, very little actually. There was, ICICI Venture, which was earlier called TDICI. There was SIDBI. There was Gujarat Venture Finance. That's it. And you never actually met them. You didn't know them. And you never actually met anybody who got venture capital, right? So, I remember 1992, it took me 6 months of trying very hard to get a 30,000 rupee OD limit.
wow.
From Bank of India. And the problem was very simple. Banks lend against collateral. The services company, we had no collateral to offer.
Oh, wow.
But after months of trying, the manager across the table took pity on me and said, okay, fine, I'll give you a clean limit of 30,000 bucks. Right. Then after 6 months, it got raised to 50,000 rupees, and then he was transferred. Next guy who came, we had paid zero. So, so it was very hard to come by external money. So essentially, you did it with customer money. Right.
It's funny about one thing that you talked about. Your idea was started by collecting stuff from the newspapers and other things and listing them online. It sounds very similar to Dipinder's study journey in Zomato, where he collected the menus and started putting them online, and that was the birth of Zomato.
Yes, and which is why when we met first time, we hit it out instantly. I said, yeah, this is what we did in jobs. I said, wo chal gaya, ye bhi chala. Okay. It resonated with me instantly. And the guys were really smart and down to earth and totally customer focused and great product notions and ideas and capabilities. And we said back them, yeah. So
Which year was this?
So we backed Zomato, which was then called Food eBay in 2010, June 2010.
Wow. It's been a long time. And I think it was an instant hit, I remember, because...
It was already a hit as far as I was concerned before we invested. See, I think what happened, so we had gone public in October 2006, right? And when you go public, there's a DRHP, there's a RHP. RHP में होता है objects of the issue, right? You have to tell SEBI why you are going public. So I wrote down, why I want to go public. We want to have, our stock should have currency, these stocks should have value, the investor should get an exit, we want to free of all shareholder agreements, we want independence, we want a company to be in a different strategic space, we want to be, it's very hard to take over a public company in India, hostile takeover.
Correct.
So we want to be untakeover, we want to stay independent. We were getting far too many offers to buy us out from global majors, and we wanted to stay independent. And we didn't want our investors to be tempted कि company बेच दो यार.
Correct.
Okay, so we said IPO कर लो, कल्याण हो जाएगा.
Correct.
ठीक है. So when I wrote all these 5-7 points, the banker said, this will not do, this will not fly, right? I said, what? He said, there are standard 5 reasons why you go public. So what? Organic growth, inorganic growth, general corporate purpose, 4-5 थे. तो I said, ठीक है, डाल दो यार. Okay, so he put that. We did the IPO. IPO 55 times oversubscribed, share price double, triple, जो भी था after this listing. But we didn't, we weren't using the money because there was, we were profitable. We had money in the bank already, and and we were making more money every quarter. So the auditors would come, and they would every quarter tell the board use of IPO proceeds nil. So after 2 quarters, the board or 3 quarters, the board told me, Sanjeev, what the hell is this here? Please use the money. You can't, SEBI will get mad at you. Okay. You get in trouble. So then we looked at the objects of issue again, and we said, yeah, the only thing we can do is inorganic growth. Or we buy an office building. Yeah. General corporate purposes. So we said, yeah, that will be a travesty to sort of lock up this capital in land building. We should have better use of capital. And we went out and we found there was nothing worthwhile to acquire at any price we want to acquire it.
Correct.
This is 2007.
Correct.
So then we said, there are lots of startups that are coming out, and VC ज़्यादा नहीं है. उस समय capital इतना नहीं था.
That is correct.
Always. So we said, listen, investing in startups is also inorganic growth.
Correct.
So we went back to the board and said, you know what, we can have a startup investing program.
Amazing.
Okay. So 2007, we began to invest.
Wow.
Okay. And the board said, okay, fine, you can invest about maybe 150, 200 crores over the next 3 years. They gave me that kind of budget, 3-4 years, you can invest that much. But you're not a fund, so you don't have a target. Just don't drop the bar on quality. Be careful, be sure, and be frugal and be conservative, and then go in. Right? And choose your founders well. So हमने 2007 और 2012 के बीच में हमने I think 6-8 कंपनियां कर दी, and follow on rounds सब मिला मिलकर about 200 crores we won.
Nice.
Right? इन 6-8 कंपनी में 2 थी Zomato और Policy Bazaar. One in 2008, one in 2010. Right? And then, but you see, the truth is that early stage investing, क्या होता है कि it's a business which one of our directors, Ashish Gupta, told me very incisively, perceptively, Sanjeev, you're in a business where the lemons ripen early. If the company is to blow up, it will blow up in 2-3 years. The company succeed, it will take 7-8 years. So the bad news comes first.
I love it.
Okay.
That's a very powerful one.
Okay.
And it's consistently true even now.
And what had happened by 2012 was the Dosha company blow up ho gayi thi. It was too early to say if anything is succeeding. Zomato was too early to say. Right? struggle था, fight मार रहे थे सब लोग, right? But you can't say ये winner है, ये FOE winner, okay? And then investors, our shareholders and analysts all began to get mad at me, and they would come and tell our IR head, they would tell CFO Amrish Raghuvanshi, they would tell whoever was scared to listen other than me. They would not tell me. Sanjeev is not that smart. He's blowing up valuable company money. He got lucky in Naukri. He can't do it twice, right? Just tell him to stop and give us the money as dividend, right? And they would keep on giving them hammer at it, right? The board got worried. And so we had a discussion, and then we agreed कि भाई अब जो हो गया. Now we will not invest in any new companies for the next few years, but we can support the current portfolio, and if needed and if deserved.
Correct.
तो हमने 2012 से 2015 में ये कोई नई कंपनी रहेगी.
Oh wow.
As a consequence, right? अब 2015 में obvious हो गया था कि Zomato and Policybazaar are going to be wild hits.
Correct.
So same investors and analysts, what is wrong with you? You did not invest last 3 years. What a wasted opportunity. So many companies have come, you could have invested in, So board said, okay, Sanjeev, you can start investing again. So 2016 से 2019 तक हमने 10-12 कंपनियां और कर दी, while at the same time supporting the whole portfolio. And then there was a new problem that if you take an exit in Zomato and Policybazaar,
Correct.
Which we haven't so far.
Yeah.
Then we might become an NBFC because
That's correct.
Our operating income will be, our financial income will be more than operating income. And then if Naukri wants to open a new sales office, we need RBI permission. Okay, so we said, yeah, this is not a good thing. We should not be investing in the balance sheet. Let's float an AIF, a fund, and invest through that entity so that InfoEdge is spared this thing of becoming an NBFC. Right? So that's what we did. Around 2019, we got a AIF license, applied for it, got it, and committed $100 million that we will do over the next 3 years through this AIF. Right? फिर 2020 में COVID हो गया. Right? There was a lockdown, 3 months, right? March 24th, we locked down. By mid-April roughly, we were getting tense. April, June 2020, Naukri billing growth was minus 44% YOY. Lockdown. No light in the tunnel, no vaccine, no nothing. We don't know
Correct.
क्या होगा.
Correct.
So a board call हुआ, and I was told कि साहब, we have decided to halve the commitment to your fund from 100 million to 50 million.
Wow. Okay.
So I said, okay, but are you okay if I go out and get the balance 50 million? Because we've hired, we've made commitments to startups. They're okay, go ahead and do it. So, we have a close relationship with Temasek. They had anchored earlier QIP, they had beat shareholders, they had come into Policybazaar and Zomato.
Correct.
So we had a good relationship there. So I rang them up and I said, there's an opportunity for you guys to put 50 million into our fund because the board, we want to halve our commitment because of COVID. And they saw the opportunity and they came in. So now we were running a fund, 50-50 Temasek and us.
Amazing.
Okay. So that's how the investing journey began, and that's how we began to see, so many startups and so many. So today from the balance sheet, financial investment, strategic investment, and the AIFs, we have close to 100 startups.
Wow.
Of which some have blown up, some we exited, sometimes distress, and 2 have gone public, and a few others are doing well, and a few others are in the pipeline. But saw startup. So now we have a team of 15 people, 18 people doing this. We look at maybe 1,000 startups a quarter, and invest in 4 or 5 a quarter. That's the kind of hit rate we have in terms of selection. And apart from that, of course, there's the operating businesses which are headed by Hitesh.
Yep.
And Naukri generates the cash, and we deploy some of it here.
Amazing. That is a very unique thing that you have managed to do is not only be listed earlier, but actually being known to being gold standard on corporate governance. You've also mentored now 2 startups to go to their public journeys, and they are all doing extremely well. And they have a great 2-3 decades ahead of them while the countries kind of grow. But there is a unique challenge. Many of the startup founders do not come from business backgrounds. They do not understand what these standards mean and how they should be going about it, and what is a wrong thing to do, a right thing to do, and so on and so forth, right? I'll give you a small example. If I tell my EA that, oh, this is a flight, I'm going for a personal reason, so don't book this through the thing, that please help me on my personal account, use my credit card. For them, this is like sometimes like a funny thing, and I'm like, but it's like 3,000
It's
rupees.
very good that these founders haven't done business before and not business families, because that's the old way of doing business, right? Putting your personal expenses into company account.
Yeah.
And if you look at where are most venture capitalists investing, they are investing behind a new kind of entrepreneur.
Correct.
Typically, these are people from middle class families. They are educated, typically, right? They probably are not from multi-generational family businesses. They're perhaps the first-time entrepreneurs, many of them. And they are the kind of people who need the money. They are the kind of people who the investors have confidence in backing.
Correct.
Right? And I think that's a good thing. Because there's a new kind of entrepreneur in India now, who 50 years ago, from that socioeconomic class, people would not become entrepreneurs.
But Sanjeev, because there are 99% of founders in the ecosystem right now who are getting any capital, have no background or business, can you break down what is corporate governance? Can you talk about it more from a zoomed out lens, and how is it practiced on a day-to-day basis?
I think corporate governance is fundamentally about being honest and fair. Today, tomorrow, and forever. Okay? Now, honest means what? Honest means pehle to aap sach bologe, that you will report your accounts in a true and fair manner.
Correct.
You will not steal money from the company.
Correct.
You will fundamentally recognize the company belongs to all shareholders.
Correct.
You will recognize that the company has an obligation to pay tax on profit or on revenue, whether it's GST or any other kind of tax. The company's obligation to pay employees' provident fund and whatever, right? So you'll pay your taxes, you report accounts honestly, truly and fairly. You will put in people and processes and technology to ensure that honest practices continue. Right? This is a broad ambit, but let me sort of tell you my own experience. So we raised money in April 2000. We raised 7.3 crores from ICICI Venture. Right? The moment the money came in tranches, the moment the first check came in, ICICI was in Delhi. I mean, they flew down to Delhi and they sat with me. And they said, yeah, दो तीन चीजें बता दें आपको जो आपने agreement sign किया. I had gone to the agreement without a banker or a lawyer. I mean, just, thought I wanted to save money. I thought I was smart. So I thought I'd read the agreement myself and do it. Right? Kei clauses the. And we discussed those clauses explicitly. He said, okay, first principle, understand it is no longer your company alone. It is also our company. We are shareholders. The company belongs to every shareholder, not just to you. And therefore, you will look after your minority shareholders, which includes your ESOP employees, everybody else, just as you will look after yourself. Correct? Okay? I said, yes, of course. That's one, but that's a fundamental concept where a lot of founders go haywire. ये मेरी कंपनी है, सबके हो, सारे छोटी कंपनी है, केवल आपकी नहीं है.
Correct. And you have a responsibility for each of
every time you're stealing money, you're putting your personal etiquette onto the company account, you are stealing money from other shareholders, because the company's money belongs to shareholders.
Correct. Correct.
And to the extent that you're a shareholder, it also belongs to you. Correct. But only in proportion.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So the first thing they said was, it's no longer your company. Please internalize that. It's no longer just your company. Right? Second, they said is, you can't get rich on our money. Your job is to build the company for everybody and all shareholders. So you are risking your life. We are risking our money. Understand that. That's the nature of the relationship. Okay? And you can't get rich on our money because you're risking your life. Which basically means you don't decide your salary. We decide your salary.
Correct.
And it won't be high. It'll be survival plus a little bit more.
Correct.
Okay. The third thing they said was, you can't get rich before we get rich. Which basically means that you cannot sell a single share till we sell. You need our permission and we won't give you the permission. So, straight and narrow, most to the grindstone, keep working, build the company. We'll all get rich and go to heaven together. Now, a lot of the principles of corporate governance, come out of this conversation.
Correct.
Number one is alignment of interest.
Correct.
Number two is company belongs to all shareholders.
Correct.
Not just to you. These are foundational.
Correct.
Okay? So every time you pay yourself too much, you're taking money away from other shareholders.
Correct.
Every time you, put your personal expense in the company, you're taking money from other shareholders.
Correct.
Right? That was the conversation. Then they said, okay, fine, let's get down to a few specific things. Number one, we need a different auditor than the one you have. Now, we had a small audit.
Sure.
Be honest, there was no hanky-panky. And I said, why do you need it? He says, we just, we have put in 7.3 crores. We want oversight of the money. We want a good auditor. And aapne clause sign kiya hai that the auditor will be to our satisfaction. So I fought for 3 weeks. I said, yeah, we want a big 5, they said. And I said, yeah, bahut mehenga hoga. So we are honest. He said, we are honest, but we want a big 5.
We trust you, but we want to verify through the big 5.
I mean, the boss said, if you're not honest, we would not have invested. You're honest, that's why we invested. You're capable, that's why we invested. You're committed, that's why we invested. But we want a big 5. So after arguing for 3 weeks, I gave up. And I went shopping. I spoke to each and every one of the big 5. कोई 2.5 लाख मांग रहा है, कोई 5 लाख मांग रहा है, कोई 10 लाख मांग रहा है for audit, annual fees. And our previous year turnover had been 36 lakhs and our PBT had been 1.8 lakhs. And I wasn't taking a salary that time. Okay. And I said, yaar, ye to pura profit kha jayenge. So finally I met Kaushik Datta from Pricewaterhouse partner. And I was introduced by a common friend. And we sat and chatted for an hour. At the end of an hour, he said, boss, I like you. Tell me what you want. I said, I want an audit in 90,000 rupees. I'll give you half of my last year's profit. Our last year's profit, I'm going to give half of it. So he said, okay, we'll do one thing. Your first year audit, I will do in 1 lakh rupees. However, 3-4 conditions. Number one, every year as you grow, we can increase the audit fees till we hit our normal audit fees. And you won't question that. I said, okay. Second, he says, in 1 lakh rupees, we can't do crazy amount of work. So you have to promise me you will always tell the truth and you'll be honest and you will not lie and you will not conceal anything, you will not hide anything. You will be upfront about everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, don't worry about that. We are that way anyway. Right? And the third thing he said was, you will have to internalize one concept philosophically and then conduct yourself according to that. I said, what? He said, you will have to internalize the understanding that your independent directors and your auditors are there to save you from yourself.
Love it.
Okay? So Indian promoters do all kinds of crazy things. We are there to save you from yourself. So we're not policemen from outside where you have to hide stuff from us. You tell us stuff.
Correct.
Be proactive.
Correct.
If you internalize that, then it will be easier for me to accept your audit. I say, yeah, don't worry about that. We'll be totally transparent and full disclosure. right? That's a very important foundation.
It's fascinating what you're saying. I think one of the earliest principles we learned and almost came from my own experience is that when people are not doing well, they tend to disappear and stop informing and stop talking to you. And as an investor, you see this. As an angel investor, I've seen that if the company is not sending anything to you, something is not doing well over there. So the nuance that I learned is that at least when I'm running, even when I have an anticipation of bad news, I write to the board, this could happen. 99% of times, nothing happens. But they like the fact that I am telling them what I am feeling, not what is happening. But what is too much and what is not too much?
So look, nothing is too much. Just as long as you communicate with nice, digestible summaries.
Correct.
Right? No, Narayan Murthy there's a very famous comment which is attributed to Mr. Narayan Murthy, that the bad news must catch the elevator upstairs to the lower room, and the good news can walk up the stairs.
I love it.
Right? Give bad news early, give good news after it happens.
I love it.
Right? And that sort of resonated with us, and that's what we do. So we outline the risks, the problems, the blowouts. That is fundamentally a more conservative way of functioning. Now, board members, investors, they want to work with honest managements.
Correct.
Honest means कि आप हमें सच बोलोगे, चाहे वो बुरी खबर हो, चाहे वो अच्छी खबर हो.
Correct.
It takes some courage to give the bad news, right? To your board, to your investors. But we have learned from experience that actually, if you give the bad news openly, transparently, and upfront and early, before it happens, right? The board and investors and shareholders will have much more confidence in you.
Correct.
That look, this is a good founder, good entrepreneur. I will not be blindsided.
Correct.
See, obviously, every shareholder wants good news.
Correct.
But the truth is, in life, bad news also happens. In business, bad news happens. Right? Now, when bad news happens, or you anticipate it happening, if you inform people in advance, they won't hear about it from the media.
Yeah.
So finding out from the third party is much worse than you telling it. And if you tell it early, who knows, they may be able to help and give you ideas and suggestions, and because they are, after all, accomplished people.
Yeah. It's fascinating. We've seen this thing where all of our board members usually, it's not common that they will respond to good news emails. But whenever we inform them anticipatory, they actually proactively always thank us.
They will call up.
Yeah. And say, yes. And
what can I do?
But I always felt some of the principles of trust are the same, right? I believe there is integrity, there is consistency, there is competence, there is benevolence. Like, these are combination of things that presence of all is not needed to create trust, but absence of any of these four will cause mistrust.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. So look, I have always said that there are one or two qualities that are absolutely core to being a successful entrepreneur and foundational. One is the ability to create trust across the table.
Correct.
With co-founders, with colleagues, with shareholders, with the government, with the tax guy, with whoever you talk to, customers.
Correct.
If you don't create trust across the table, in the long run, you cannot succeed. Because fundamentally, any business is a people's business.
Yeah.
Even the most high-tech businesses are people's business.
Correct.
I mean, look at what happened to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
OpenAI.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the company almost went under on a people issue.
For all the glory it had, right?
And then it was rescued because you solved the people problem.
Correct. And people got involved and people solved people issues. Let's just break down this thing. There are a lot of young founders now in India, and I call them young because I'm also old now compared to the batch that is kind of coming and disrupting all the things that are happening. Can you break down the principles of how do you create trust as a company, as a leader, not just for investors? Can you break down the tenets of trust?
I think first is tell the truth tell it upfront, openly, honestly, even if it is in the beginning a little uncomfortable.
Correct.
Second is keep your commitment.
Correct.
Right? If you said you'll do something, do it.
Correct.
So basically, he's a man of his word. He's saying kahavat hai. It means he can be trusted.
Like iske zaban we value hai.
If you look at the history of banking, right? There's a saying, my word is my bond. मैंने ज़बान दी है.
Yeah.
Right? What does it mean? The bond, which is a piece of paper, right, is actually documenting your word.
Yes, that is correct.
Right? So do you keep your word? If you keep your word, then there's a sense of fairness. Right? I want to work with Kunal because I know he will be fair. I know that, look, if the company does well, I know I'll get a fair share of
Correct.
financially.
Correct.
So the ESOP scheme is fair.
Correct.
I know that, okay, so today my salary is less because the company is not making a profit, but when the company succeeds, I'll more than make it up in ESOP. And it's a fair ESOP allocation.
Correct.
There's fairness. It's not as if Kunal is going home with all the money.
Correct. Correct.
Not giving it to me. More than financially, I will get a fair share of the credit and the recognition.
And versus you just being portrayed as the...
Right. So, fair share of credit and recognition. That creates trust also. Because people don't just work for money.
Yeah, that's correct.
At the end of the day, people want to do a job that has meaning. And recognition for your effort is a big part of that meaning.
That makes sense. It makes sense. Sanjeev, let's just talk about this a little bit more. Why do you think like some countries are known by default for their trust and reputation, and we are still building that muscle? Like, why do you think? Is it because we are short term? Is it because we have shortcut mindset? Like, why do you think why are we not known as a country of absolute gold standard? Startup, big company, doesn't matter. And I see the premium coming to the companies who have trust. Their multiples, their premium of trust is huge in this country. I almost believe that.
So actually, I believe that maybe 95% of our founders are honest. What makes the headlines are the blowouts on account of integrity or perhaps incompetence.
Correct.
Right? But most are honest. It's just as honest people will take 10 or 15 years before building a large company.
That's correct.
And that's when they'll be recognized.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And yes, there's also kaha jata hai na, good news is no news.
That's true.
Okay?
That is true.
So that's the media cycle. That's the nature of media, right? And we'll have to live with that. But I do believe that most founders are honest, and that's how you invest.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, why would anybody? Why would
we invest?
Yeah. Yeah. Why would we deploy any capital behind anybody?
Yeah.
I think there is being honest by default, but also about choices being made. Right. We talked about a simple example about just personal expenses and should come naturally to people.
So that's black and white. But
yeah.
See, there are many, many gray areas.
So can you talk about some gray areas? Which in your head is black and white, but it's not in their head.
So you're selling a product. You're giving a discount.
Yes.
Right. What is the revenue? Is it the price money you get after the discount?
Correct.
Or is it the full price and then you put the discounted amount as marketing expense?
Correct. That is correct.
Right. According to me, it has to be
the net revenue.
The net revenue.
Correct.
But very many people don't do it that way because they want to show higher revenue. That's window dressing.
But it'll have the impact on gross margins, right? Like, why would you?
But you see, if the market is rewarding you on GMV, your valuation in your next round raise, the market is giving the incentive to do this.
Oh, so it's interesting. So many startups are compared with this, large revenue, but if you see what falls at the bottom, it's barely anything.
You got to ask people the right question. Like, what is your revenue recognition policy?
Correct.
How do you treat this? How do you treat that? Right. Let's say you are in a business where you're appointing franchisees.
Correct.
There's an upfront franchise fee.
Correct.
Is that revenue or are you capitalizing it?
Or amortizing it over a period of time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Right? How do you... Now, you see, more than the actual number that is being shown, you're getting to know how the person thinks. And that's, for me, it's a test of character.
I love it.
That he could even say this is revenue.
Correct.
Tells me, yeah, he can take other shortcuts also.
Correct. Very interesting. Like, what is their own self discipline towards these things? Right. Because technically you can claim that is also revenue, but where is your...
No, it's one time. It's not revenue. It's one time.
One time. No, but I'm saying that discounted product.
What is the life of franchisee?
Yeah.
If the franchise will say 5 years, then that's 20% is here.
Yeah.
Each year.
Yeah. I mean, this is common in, let's say, in education where people kind of pay fees for the 3-4 years and they're kind of getting the benefit over multiple months or multiple years. So this is very interesting.
Now this is the newest accounting rule, which somebody who's not studying finance may not immediately grasp.
Correct.
And therefore, for good governance, it's very important that you surround yourself with capable people, knowledgeable people, who can show you right from wrong. And then you should listen to them. Now, to do that, first of all, you have to be clear in your head that I want to do the right thing. I want to be honest.
Correct.
And I don't know everything.
Correct.
So I will listen a lot.
Correct.
To people who know more. I have more experience and know more than me in certain areas. Okay. So accordingly, good governance begins and ends in the founder's head.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we don't understand that being honest and trustworthy creates long-term thing. For example, if an investor is backed you once, they will back you twice, thrice, even if you fail, because they've never had
even if they don't back you, they will tell 5 other people.
Yeah. But this guy is solid.
Even if they don't, do anything, they'll stay on your company for 5 years instead of selling in 1 year.
Correct. That is
give you a stable cap table.
That is true.
As a public company, that's useful.
That is true.
So I'll give you one more example. So around 2003 or around 2003 or 4, Deep Kalra, Make My Trip, invited me to be on his board as an independent. I said, okay. Now, in those days, independent directors could get ESOP. Correct. So I was given ESOP. Correct. Right. So I sat down with Hitesh and Amrish. Right. Amrish was our CFO then. And we agreed that because I am putting some of my time there, which actually should belong to our shareholders.
Correct.
Any benefit I get from there should go to our shareholders.
Correct.
And therefore, my ESOP will go to the company, InfoEdge. Of course, this is a sort of something which I would transfer only after I exercise this.
Correct.
And got the stock.
That is correct.
So the week after Make My Trip listed, I exercised my ESOP. We sold the shares in the market and the money went to the company. Now, we had not told our shareholders about this unconventional arrangement. And it showed up as a windfall gain, right? In that quarter's profits of a reasonable size. It was very substantial, right? And people, the analyst said, what is this? So then we explained that this is the ESOP given to Sanjeev. He had said the company should get it. Because we want alignment of interest with all shareholders. The whole concept of what ICICI said to me.
Correct.
Alignment of interest, convergence of interest.
Correct.
With all shareholders. And if I'm giving my time away from the company, everybody should benefit. Right? Now, enough. American investors called me. I said, Beth, nobody does this. This is fantastic. This is too good. And then one guy said, I'll tell you something. InfoEdge gets a 25% premium in its market price for corporate governance.
Wow.
Take it from me. And he said, Dekho, we know businesses, you can make business losses and mistakes, and you may lose money on your company. But we know it won't be because you lied to us or because you hid something from us or disclosed it too late. And that means we can sleep at night.
Do you believe that the premium for corporate governance is 25% or even higher? I feel it is sometimes even higher in, at least in India context.
I think in down markets, it is even higher because your share corrects the least.
Correct.
Right? In up markets, सबकी गुड़िया high होती है. Boom, boom. Is, everybody is optimistic. All investors also. Then everything moves up. So the real acid test is what happens to your share price compared to other companies when there's a down market.
There is a recent nuance. Earlier, companies would only go public when they were profitable. Now, many companies have gone public without having profit.
So SEBI changed the rules.
Correct.
Right? See, what was happening was that in the US and other overseas markets, these new age tech companies would go public without making a profit and without perhaps a profit next 2, 3, 4 years. What that meant was that it was more attractive for these loss-making startups, even in India, to somehow go public overseas. And that made Indian markets less attractive. SEBI and the government decided that, okay, we will change some rules and at least allow loss-making companies to go public in India with certain tweaking of rules and certain, guardrails. And that's what happened. But market conditions have changed, or the rules permit these companies to go public. And the market situation is that investors may or may not have the confidence to give that company the kind of valuation they want should they go public when they're still loss-making. So, can these companies go public? Answer is yes. However, the valuation will be what the market will give you.
Correct.
Now, if you raise money at $10 billion,
correct,
but today's public market is giving $3 billion, and you want to go public, but you'll have to go public at $3 billion.
Makes sense.
And that's life.
What would you tell startups to do? Would you tell them to go?
I would say.
When would you tell a startup, I think you should list?
When either you're profitable, or you know for sure, अगले 2 साल में हो जाएगा profit.
Correct. And you should have very clear visibility on that.
Then I would say you should go public when your internal systems, processes, and people can handle the responsibility of public company.
Correct.
See, oversight is different. The moment there's public money involved. See, in the beginning, it's your company, only you're the only shareholder. Right? People care less. Then you raise, let's say, VC money. Now you have a shareholder agreement, you got a board, you got MIS, you got oversight, you got business plans, you got all those things. But still you're accountable to only 2 or 3 people. And it's not public money. Right? When you go public, public का पैसा कुछ नहीं. The government's job and SEBI's job is to safeguard public interest. Therefore, the nature of reporting, oversight, compliance changes. There's an overhead. There's a bandwidth consumption.
It makes sense.
And therefore, you should only do it when your profit streams are sufficient to support that overhead. Correct.
That's correct. Just like your story of PricewaterhouseCoopers thing, you have to make that make sense. I learned something very interesting, that somebody said that startups to think about being public if they've run at least 8 quarters like a public company, and then think about that. DP and Yashish both have gone public, and obviously you had a role to play in terms of guiding them into their journeys. What are the few advices that you gave to both of them that would be relevant for other people also?
I think so Ram Shriram was a shareholder in our company just before the IPO. And he had told me that time, Sanjeev, just remember, in the final analysis, your only asset is your reputation.
I love it. I love it.
So, कुछ भी काम नहीं करना जो reputation को damage करे.
I love it. It makes perfect sense.
Because उसी reputation के आधार पे सब कुछ बना है. और अगर reputation intact रहे, or ye company collapses, you will still go ahead in life.
Correct.
Because you have a reputation.
Correct.
But that made a lot of sense to me. And that's what we tell our founders as well. Right? So now, when we went public, the question was, there are now stakeholders and potential stakeholders who don't have perfect alignment of interest. If I price the IPO very high, right, it's very good for current shareholders, especially those who are exiting the IPO.
That is correct.
Right? Unke hit mein hai. But if I price the IPO there, right, and then the price tags after IPO, you hurt the incoming shareholders.
Correct. That is correct.
Right? And you hurt your reputation.
That's correct.
So this is a tough trade-off to manage. And eventually it's a question of judgment. And you'll never get it perfectly right because you'll always price it too high or too low. You want, ideally, I want 25% pop. How do you know what the pop will be here?
That's correct.
You can't predict the future.
That's correct.
So मुझे याद है कि, we were the first internet IPO in India. So we were nervous, apprehensive. Kya hoga? So we figured it's good to be conservative. कि IPO failure हो रही है.
That's correct. That's correct. And it makes sense.
Right? हमने वो किया. We priced it 320, the share. It went to 587 day one. Now double. Now part of it is brownie points. It was our IPO. देखो share price double. Part of it is saying, did I price it too low? Was I fair to the current shareholders? Maybe I should price it 400, maybe 450. Maybe that's 587. Income will still make money.
Correct.
Enough money.
Correct.
So these are judgment calls. But as long as your intent is clean and you know it is clean,
correct,
it's okay.
Yeah. What are the other advices you have given to them in their journey for?
So I've always said, don't price the IPO aggressively.
Right. So protect your reputation the most. Don't price it aggressively so that people make money through your IPO. What else?
Especially retail shareholders, boss, because the retail shareholders are coming in the IPO.
Correct. And they're mostly your customers.
If the little guy gets hurt, it's bad karma.
Yeah.
In India, especially.
Yes.
Because India still has a socialist heart.
Yes. And we should never forget that. We should never forget that we are not capitalist the way Western world is.
This tradition.
Yes.
I mean, we have a capitalist tradition.
Yes.
But we also have a socialist tradition.
Correct.
Okay, so India has been an entrepreneurial country. There are enough capitalists in India. But the heart of India is socialist.
Correct.
So you can't be hurting the little guy.
Correct. And I think also if you have the little guy or the small investor as somebody supporting you, I think you will have a much more longer support system to support the company as well. I've seen that if they have made money through you, they will fight for you.
So I'll tell you, we went public in 2006 and we had a shareholder hedge fund from San Francisco with 3 to 4-5% company. It's significant. And they were very smart guys, very good guys. We used to meet them regularly. Well done, Aya. And one fine day, and they were great believers in the company. One fine day, we discovered they've vanished from us, cap table, zero. So on the next trip to San Francisco, we called on them and said, what happened? You were great believers. He says, we wanted to stay, but we had redemption in our hedge fund. Humko paise chahiye the. And we had other companies in India, and I won't name them, but well known names. जब हम मार्केट में गए उनके शेयर्स बेचने बिके नहीं. Nobody wanted them. Yours was the only company where there were buyers at the market price, without us having to discount it. And therefore we were forced to get out of your stock because we had to have the money. So yours is the only stock we didn't get stuck in. So, investor relations is not a finance job. It is a sales and service job.
Can you elaborate on this? This is a very powerful point. You're saying investor relationship is a very different sales and support job.
Sales and service job, right?
Sales and
So
service.
basically, what is your role if you're young company has done an IPO, what is your role as an investor relations guy or a CEO? Your role is not to sell your stock. Your role is when somebody else wants to sell your stock, there should be a buyer.
Perfect. Love it.
Lucky, nobody gets stuck in your stock.
Correct.
You don't get a reputation, yeah, इसमें फंस जाओगे, मत जाओ.
Perfect.
Right?
So this is a 2-step ahead game. Not sell your stock, create a stock that if required, people should be able to get money
People
for.
who want to exit should be able to exit.
Correct.
Should always be enough buyers.
Correct. Correct.
Right? So therefore, if in investor relations, you're doing road shows, going to investor conferences, doing analyst calls, all of that, people are visiting your office. Let's say you're meeting about 500-600 investors a year.
Correct.
Not more than 20-30 will actually be your shareholders.
Correct. That's correct.
The others want to come and study, understand the company. And when you tell your story, if somebody wants to sell, can somebody in the remaining 580 be a buyer?
Correct.
So if you have, so there's nothing finance about this.
Mm.
You're talking finance.
Yeah.
But they're asking finance questions.
Correct.
And business questions.
Correct.
But fundamentally, it's a sales and service job. You're trying to educate them about the story, you're evangelizing the story.
That is correct.
Now, if retail investors, coming back to your point, if retail investors actually like your company, like you, and have belief and faith and confidence, they can provide a cushion in downturns where there'll be enough buyers when somebody wants to sell.
That's correct.
And studies have shown that retail investors are the longest holders, actually. People hold and forget about it.
That's true. We've seen this enough times. But one of the things that I know multiple analysts told me, I keep meeting them because they are very good at the research and I learn a lot from how they think about public companies. They said DP and Akshant met multiple years before they considered going IPO. They were meeting them quite regularly, explaining the business. What was the guidance behind that?
So first of all, a lot of that is inbound. Okay, the Indian internet scene was booming, but InfoEdge was the only listed company. Now, if somebody is a public market investor, he does not have a mandate to go into private companies.
Correct.
And they're waiting. There's a shortage of paper. InfoEdge is the only paper.
That is correct.
And they're waiting. When will they go public? Then I can invest. So they will do their homework early. So a lot of inbound. Some of them had also private pockets that we can do pre-IPOs. So that was being explored. Some of it was being driven by bankers. The investment banks, the merchant banks, they wanted to build early relationships with these companies, these startups, saying, jab ye public jayengi, perhaps they will retain me as a banker because I already have a relationship. And they would take them to the investor conference.
Understood. So they also started investing the relationship early on.
And that would be attractive to investors also to attend those conferences.
Correct.
That we are bringing you 4 Indian internet companies unlisted in this conference, where you're also meeting other listed companies.
Correct.
From India. So, markets are...
Makes sense. Just a macro question. Internet companies are still not well understood by India market. In the US, probably, 25-27% of market cap would be with internet companies of some type. India would be probably less than 5% is my guess right now. 10 years out, how do you see this play out in India?
No, 10 years out, I think there'll be many more internet companies, many more profitable and large internet companies. And yes, it'll be some multiple of, whatever it is today.
Correct.
In terms of percentage of market cap. But for that, you need, large, profitable internet companies that are still growing and are listed. You need enough of them. But also understand that, look, India is an economy that's still maturing.
Yes.
So our infrastructure is not fully built out.
Correct. That's correct. Our per capita income is still kind of get to a...
So even those companies will have high market cap because they also are seeing growth. And they're seeing size and scale and profit. So unlike in the US, where, all those industries have been done and grown, and this is where the growth is coming from. So I doubt we will, in 10 years' time, reach the US levels of share of market cap. But it will certainly be higher than now.
Makes perfect sense. Just one final question, Sanjeev. We are all participants of ecosystem, and every single error of competence, error of judgment, error of misbehavior impacts the entire ecosystem. What are the few principles that you would kind of wish for the startup ecosystem to follow? Because we all want this to do well. And we've been around enough time that we would love to see many more founders thrive, and not just the chase of large unicorn titles, but like large profit pools to do that. What are the few things that you would tell them to do?
थोड़ा सा डर के रहो. Respect the law. It's okay if your market cap is not the highest.
Correct.
But it's more important to make sure you're running a clean, honest company.
Correct.
With honest practices.
Correct.
With best practices in governance.
Correct. Sanjeev, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Good stuff, sir. Bye.